In the year 2147, humanity had reached a point in its history where it was no longer alone in the universe. After decades of searching, Earth finally made contact with an advanced alien civilization known as the Valari. These beings were tall, elegant, and highly intelligent, with shimmering skin that seemed to reflect light like liquid silver. They ruled over dozens of planets across their sector of space, governed by a body called the Council of Stars. For years, humans dreamed of peaceful cooperation with such a powerful species, hoping to exchange knowledge, technology, and resources. It was a dream that felt within reach until tragedy struck. Daniel Harper stood at the center of this fragile hope. He was one of Earth's finest diplomats, chosen for his calm demeanor, sharp intellect, and ability to navigate even the most tense situations. With short brown hair and piercing blue eyes, Daniel carried himself with quiet confidence. He believed deeply in the potential for unity between species and saw this mission as the chance of a lifetime. Alongside him was Alina Cruz, a linguist whose expertise in alien languages had earned her a spot on the team. Her dark curls framed a face marked by determination, and she often joked that her job was translating peace. Rounding out the group was Nathan Cole, a burly man with a no-nonsense attitude who served as their security officer. His role was simple: keep everyone safe. The journey to meet the Valari took weeks aboard the sleek human starship Odyssey. The crew spent hours preparing for every possible scenario, rehearsing speeches, practicing protocols, and studying everything they knew about the Valari culture. When they arrived at the designated meeting point, a massive Valari capital, ship named the Ecliptica, the sight was breathtaking. The vessel loomed against the blackness of space, its surface glittering like polished crystal. It was clear that the Valari were far ahead of humanity in terms of technology. But Daniel reminded himself that diplomacy wasn't about power. It was about understanding. As the three humans stepped onto the Ecliptica, they were greeted by a delegation of Valari officials. Their leader, a towering figure named Zirin, extended a hand in greeting. His voice, though deep and resonant, carried a softness that put Daniel slightly at ease. "Welcome, representatives of Earth," Zirin said through a translator device. "We have awaited your arrival with great anticipation." The first few days of negotiations went smoothly. Daniel spoke passionately about humanity's desire for partnership, emphasizing shared goals like scientific advancement and mutual defense. Alina translated his words into the fluid musical language of the Valar, earning approving nods from their hosts. Even Nathan relaxed somewhat, though he remained vigilant, scanning the room for any signs of danger. The Valari appeared genuinely interested in what Earth had to offer, particularly when Daniel mentioned breakthroughs in sustainable energy sources. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered. Not all Valari supported the idea of aligning with humans. Some viewed Earth as a threat, fearing that humanity's rapid technological progress could destabilize the balance of power in the galaxy. Others whispered of ulterior motives, claiming that Earth sought not cooperation but domination. These dissenting voices gained strength when a mysterious incident occurred during the Samhita data breach in the Ecliptica's secure archives. One evening, as Daniel reviewed notes in his quarters, alarms blared throughout the ship. Moments later, armed Valari guards stormed into the room, their weapons trained on him. "You were under arrest for espionage," one of them declared coldly. Before Daniel could protest, he was dragged away, leaving Alina and Nathan stunned and confused. The next morning, the entire human delegation was summoned to the main chamber of the Ecliptica. There they found themselves facing the full assembly of the Council of Stars. Dozens of Valari leaders sat in a semicircle, their expressions unreadable. At the center stood Zirin, holding a small device that pulsed with an eerie green light. "This is evidence of your crimes," he announced, holding up the object. "Your envoy infiltrated our systems and stole classified information." Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady despite the accusation. "That's impossible," he said firmly. "I came here in good faith. Whatever you think you've found, it's a misunderstanding." Zirin ignored him, turning instead to address the council. The penalty for treason is death, he declared. Without waiting for further discussion, 2 guards seized Daniel and forced him to kneel before the assembly. Elena gasped, clutching Nathan's arm as fear gripped her heart. "No," she shouted, stepping forward. "You can't do this. You haven't even given him a trial." Her plea fell on deaf ears. One of the council members activated a device, and a beam of light shot out, striking Daniel squarely in the chest. In an instant, his body dissolved into nothingness, leaving only silence behind. Elena collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face as Nathan pulled her back, his jaw clenched in fury. The council watched impassively, unmoved by the raw emotion displayed by the humans. Back on Earth, news of Daniel's execution spread like wildfire. Images of the horrific event were broadcast across the planet, sparking outrage and grief. Protests erupted in major cities, with crowds chanting slogans like "Justice for Daniel" and "Never again." President Laura Hayes addressed the nation from the White House, her expression grim. "The Valerie have committed an unspeakable act of violence against us," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "They have betrayed the principles of diplomacy and shown the galaxy their true nature. We will not stand idly by while they trample on our values." For Elena and Nathan, the pain of losing Daniel was compounded by guilt. They replayed the events leading up to his death over and over in their minds, wondering if there was something they could have done differently. Trapped aboard the Ecliptica, they now faced an uncertain future. Would the Valari execute them too? Or would they be used as bargaining chips in some twisted game? Despite their despair, Elena refused to give up. She began observing the Valari closely, noting subtle differences among them. Some seemed uneasy about the council's actions, exchanging wary glances or whispering quietly among themselves. Could these individuals be potential allies? If so, reaching out to them might be their only chance of survival, and perhaps even redemption for Daniel's death. As days turned into weeks, Elena and Nathan worked together to piece together clues about the data breach that had sealed Daniel's fate. Whoever had framed him had done so with precision, planting false evidence that pointed directly at Earth. But why? And who stood to gain from turning the Valare against humanity? Unraveling the truth would require courage, cunning, and a willingness to take risks even if it meant putting their own lives on the line. Little did they know, their efforts would set off a chain reaction that would change the course of galactic history forever. The days following Daniel Harper's execution were a blur of anger, grief, and fear for Elena Cruz and Nathan Cole. They were confined to a small, sterile room aboard the Ecliptica, their movements monitored constantly by Valerie guards. Walls seemed to close in on them as they replayed the horrific moment over and over in their minds. Lena couldn't stop seeing Daniel kneeling before the council, his face calm even in the face of death. Nathan, meanwhile, wrestled with guilt. Had been tasked with keeping everyone safe, yet he had failed spectacularly. Despite their despair, Elena refused to give up. She knew that staying alive was the only way to honor Daniel's memory and uncover the truth behind the betrayal. While Nathan paced the room, clenching and unclenching his fists, Elena sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes fixed on the door. "There's something we're missing," she muttered under her breath. "Why would the council frame us? Who benefits from this?" Nathan stopped pacing and looked at her. "You think it's not just about hating humans?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. Elena shook her head. "No, this feels calculated, like someone wanted to make sure Earth and the Valari never got along." Her words lingered in the air between them. It made sense, too much sense. The timing of the data breach, the lack of evidence presented during the trial, and the council's immediate decision to execute Daniel all pointed to a larger conspiracy. But who could they trust? Every Valari they encountered appeared loyal to the council, their expressions unreadable, their motives unclear. As if on cue, the door slid open, and a guard entered. This one was different from the others. His posture was less rigid, his movements more deliberate. He glanced at Elena and Nathan before speaking. "You need to be quiet," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Then, without another word, he left the room as quickly as he had come. Elena exchanged a glance with Nathan. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Yeah," Nathan replied, narrowing his eyes. What do you think he meant? Before Elena could answer, the guard returned, carrying trays of food. As he set them down, he leaned closer to Elena and muttered, "Not all of us agree with what happened." Then louder, he added, "Eat. You'll need your strength." When the guard left again, Elena turned to Nathan, her heart racing. "Did you catch that?" she asked excitedly. He said, "Not everyone agrees." Nathan nodded slowly, though skepticism lingered in his expression. "Could be a trap," he warned. "Can't just assume he's on our side." "You're right," Elena admitted. "But it's the first crack we've seen in their armor. If there are dissenters among the Velari, maybe we can use that to our advantage." Over the next few days, Elena kept a close eye on the guards who brought them food. Most behaved as expected, cold, distant, and professional, but the same guard who had spoken to them earlier continued to drop subtle hints. Once, he lingered near the door and whispered, "Be ready." Another time, he slipped a small object into Elena's hand when no one was looking. It was a tiny crystal, glowing faintly blue. "What is this?" Elena asked, holding it up to the light. "It's a key," the guard replied quietly, "for later." Nathan watched the exchange with growing suspicion. "How do we know we can?" "Trust him?" he demanded once the guard was gone. "We don't," Elena admitted. "But right now, he's the only lead we have. If he wanted us dead, he could have done it already." Reluctantly, Nathan agreed to play along. The two of them spent hours examining the crystal, trying to figure out how it worked. Elena speculated that it might unlock something, a door, a computer system, or perhaps even a hidden message. Whatever its purpose, it was clear that the guard intended for them to use it soon. Their chance came sooner than expected. One night, as Elena and Nathan lay awake in their bunks, the lights in their cell dimmed unexpectedly. Moments later, the door slid open, revealing the familiar silhouette of the guard. "Follow me," he said urgently. "We don't have much time." Without hesitation, Elena grabbed the crystal and followed him, with Nathan close behind. Corridors of the Ecliptica were eerily quiet, the usual hum of activity replaced by an oppressive silence. The guard led them through a maze of passages, occasionally pausing to check for other Velari before continuing. A narrow service tunnel that sloped downward. "This leads to a cargo bay," the guard explained. "From there you can board a transport vessel bound for human territory." Elena hesitated. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. The guard hesitated before answering. "My name is Kale," he said. "I'm part of a faction that believes the Council has become corrupt. Framing your envoy was a power move away to justify war with Earth. We don't want that. If humanity retaliates, it will destroy both our peoples." Nathan frowned. "And what happens to you if they find out? You helped us?" Kale's expression hardened. "That's a risk I'm willing to take. Just promise me one thing. Tell your leaders the truth. Expose the Council's lies." Elena nodded solemnly. "We will. Thank you, Kale." With that, Kale handed them a small device. "This will deactivate the transport ship's security systems. Use it wisely." They parted ways, with Kale disappearing into the shadows while Elena and Nathan continued down the tunnel. When they reached the cargo bay, they found several ships docked, their engines idling. Using the device Kale had given them, they managed to bypass the security protocols and climb aboard one of the vessels. As the ship detached from the Ecliptica and soared into the vastness of space, Elena and Nathan finally allowed themselves to breathe. For the first time in weeks, they felt a glimmer of hope, but their relief was short-lived. Kale's warning echoed in their minds. The Council planned to launch a preemptive attack on Earth, believing humanity would retaliate for Daniel's execution. Back on Earth, tensions were already boiling over. News of Daniel's death had ignited protests worldwide, with millions demanding justice. President Laura Hayes addressed the nation, vowing to hold the Velari accountable. Meanwhile, General Aaron Blake convened a secret meeting with military leaders to discuss Earth's options. Among those present was Dr. Rachel Monroe, a physicist whose research into experimental energy weapons offered a potential solution. Dr. Monroe stood before the assembled group, explaining her latest invention, the Oblivion Array. It was a massive orbital weapon capable of unleashing devastating beams of energy, powerful enough to obliterate entire fleets. While controversial, the array represented Earth's best chance of defending itself against a superior enemy. General Blake listened intently, weighing the risks and rewards. If we deploy this weapon, it sends a clear message. We won't tolerate aggression, he said, but it also means war. Are we ready for that? President Hayes, seated at the head of the table, stared at the holographic projection of the Oblivion array. Her expression was grim but resolute. We may not have a choice, she said. The Valerie strike first. We need to be prepared. Unbeknownst to them, Alina and Nathan were hurtling toward Earth, carrying vital information that could change the course of history. Kale's warnings about the Council's plans were crucial, but would they arrive in time to prevent disaster? And even if they did, could humanity rally together to face the looming threat? As the transport ship approached Earth's atmosphere, Alina gazed out the window at the blue-green orb below. It was beautiful, fragile, and worth fighting for. Beside her, Nathan clenched his fists, his jaw set in determination. Whatever lay ahead, they were ready to face it, to honor Daniel's memory and protect the future of their species. Little did they know, their journey was far from over. The battle for survival was just beginning, and the choices they made would shape the destiny of two civilizations forever. Alina Cruz and Nathan Cole's transport ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot as it pierced the thick layers of air. The journey back had been tense but uneventful, with both of them replaying Kale's warnings. In their minds, they knew they carried critical information details that could save humanity from a devastating attack. But they also understood the weight of what lay ahead. The Council's plans for war were no longer just speculation. They were a ticking time bomb when the ship finally touched down at a military base outside Washington. DC, Alina, and Nathan were greeted by a team of soldiers who escorted them to a secure facility. There, they were ushered into a conference room where President Laura Hayes, General Aaron Blake, and several high-ranking officials awaited. The president's face was drawn with exhaustion, her eyes shadowed by sleepless nights, but she stood tall as she addressed them. "Welcome back," she said, though her tone was anything but warm. "We've been waiting anxiously for your report." Alina took a deep breath, steadying herself before speaking. She recounted everything that had happened aboard the Ecliptica. Daniel Harper's execution, the fabricated evidence used against him, and Kale's revelations about the Council's intentions. Her voice trembled slightly when she mentioned Daniel's death, but she forced herself to remain composed. Nathan chimed in occasionally, "Des," adding details about their escape and Kale's role in helping them. By the time they finished, the room was silent. President Hayes leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly on the table. "So the Council isn't just punishing us, they're planning an attack?" she asked, her voice sharp with disbelief. "Yes, ma'am," Alina replied. Kale said they believe Earth will retaliate. He thinks they want to strike first to weaken us. General Blake frowned deeply, his weathered face creased with concern. "If that's true, we need to act fast. We can't afford to wait for them to make the first move." Dr. Rachel Monroe, seated nearby, nodded in agreement. She had been listening intently, her mind already racing with possibilities. "The Oblivion array is nearly operational," she said. "It could give us the edge we need if they attack." President Hayes turned to her, her expression conflicted. "Are you sure it's ready? Using something like that, it changes everything. It's not just a weapon, it's a statement. It's a deterrent," Dr. Monroe corrected gently. "If we deploy it strategically, we can show the Valerie that we're not defenseless. But we have to be careful. Once we use it, there's no going back." The room fell silent again as everyone considered the implications humanity was on. The brink of its first interstellar war, and the decisions made in this moment would shape the future of their species. For Alina and Nathan, the gravity of the situation was overwhelming. They had seen firsthand the ruthlessness of the Valerie Council, but now they were witnessing the fearsome resolve of their own leaders. After a long pause, President Hayes straightened in her chair. "Very well," she said firmly. "Prepare. The Oblivion array. Admiral Stephen Grant will oversee our fleet's readiness. If the Valari come for us, we'll be ready." As orders were issued and preparations began, Alina and Nathan were taken to a separate briefing room. A psychologist was present, offering support to help them process their trauma. But neither of them felt ready to talk about Daniel or the horrors they'd endured. Instead, they focused on what came next. Alina insisted on being involved in any diplomatic efforts, arguing that her knowledge of the Valar language and culture could prove invaluable. Nathan, meanwhile, volunteered for active duty, determined to contribute in any way he could. Days passed in a blur of activity. Across the globe, Earth's military forces mobilized, fortifying defenses and positioning fleets near Valari borders. Oblivion Array, a massive structure orbiting Earth, became the centerpiece of humanity's strategy. Its sleek design and ominous capabilities inspired both awe and fear among those who worked on it. Dr. Monroe oversaw final tests, ensuring the weapon functioned perfectly. When she wasn't in the lab, she briefed top officials on its potential, uses, and limitations. Meanwhile, public sentiment continued to shift. News outlets broadcast constant updates about the crisis, fueling widespread panic. Protests erupted in major cities, with some demanding immediate retaliation against the Valari, while others called for restraint. Families stocked up on supplies. Schools closed temporarily, and governments declared states of emergency. It was clear that the world was bracing for impact. Amid the chaos, Alina found solace in her work. She spent hours reviewing recordings of Valari communications, searching for clues about their next move. One evening, as she sifted through data, she noticed something unusual, a pattern in the timing of certain transmissions. At first glance, it seemed random, but upon closer inspection, she realized it corresponded to movements within the Valari fleet. Excited, she rushed to share her findings with General Blake. "This could be it," she explained, pointing to the screen. "They're coordinating something big. Look at these coordinates. They match locations near Luna Station." General Blake studied the map, his brow furrowed. "You think they're targeting our lunar outpost?" "It's possible," Alina replied. "Luna Station is one of our most important bases. If they hit it, it would cripple our ability to respond quickly." Without wasting a moment, General Blake alerted Admiral Grant, who immediately ordered reinforcements to Luna Station. Dozens of starships set course for the moon, along with additional ground troops and defensive systems. Back on Earth, civilians watched anxiously as reports poured in about the buildup. Would the Valari strike? And if so, how soon? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. In the early hours of the morning, alarms blared across Luna Station as unidentified vessels appeared on radar. Within minutes, the Valari fleet launched its assault. Their ships moved with precision, firing powerful energy beams that tore through the station's outer defenses. Explosions lit up the dark surface of the moon, sending debris flying in all directions. Admiral Grant commanded his forces from the bridge of his flagship, the Defiant Star. His voice remained calm despite the chaos around him. "All units, engage the enemy," he barked. "Protect the core facilities at all costs." The battle raged fiercely, with human pilots maneuvering their smaller, faster ships to outflank the larger Valari vessels. Missiles streaked through space, colliding with shields and hulls alike. On the ground, soldiers fought valiantly to hold their positions, using every tool at their disposal to repel the invaders. Despite being outnumbered, humanity's forces refused to yield. Back on Earth, President Hayes monitored the conflict from a secure command center. Her knuckles whitened as she gripped the edge of her chair, watching live footage of the battle unfold. Beside her, Dr. Monroe waited nervously, knowing that the Oblivion Array might soon play a decisive role. The weapon had only been tested once, and its full capabilities were still uncertain. Should we activate it? President Hayes asked quietly, her eyes fixed on the screen. Dr. Monroe hesitated. "Only if absolutely necessary," she replied. "Once we use it, the Valari won't see us as equals anymore. They'll see us as monsters." For now, the decision was postponed. The tide of the battle shifted unpredictably, with neither side gaining a clear advantage. But as casualties mounted and destruction spread, it became increasingly clear that this skirmish was merely the beginning of a much larger conflict. In the days that followed, Humanity mourned its losses while preparing for what lay ahead. Alina and Nathan threw themselves into their respective roles, driven by a shared determination to honor Daniel's memory. For Alina, it meant continuing her analysis of Valar's strategies and advocating for diplomacy wherever possible. Nathan, it meant training harder, pushing himself to become a better soldier. Through it all, whispers of rebellion echoed faintly from the Valari Empire. Kael's faction, though small, was growing stronger, fueled by outrage over the council's actions. Messages began trickling in through encrypted channels, offering intelligence and pledging support. While trust remained fragile, these developments gave hope that not all Valari were enemies, and that alliances could still be forged. As Earth rallied its strength and prepared for the inevitable next phase of the war, one truth became undeniable. Humanity had entered a new era. No longer content to cower in fear, they stood united, ready to fight for their survival. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but they faced it with courage and resolve, whatever the outcome. The legacy of Daniel Harper and the sacrifices of countless others would not be forgotten. The aftermath of the battle at Luna Station left Earth's leaders shaken but resolute. Though Admiral Stephen Grant and his forces had managed to repel the Valari assault, the cost was staggering. Dozens of starships were destroyed, hundreds of soldiers lost their lives, and parts of Luna Station lay in ruins. The victory felt hollow. It was clear that humanity had only delayed the inevitable. The Valari Council would not stop until they achieved their goals. Whatever those might be, in the days following the attack, Alina Cruz worked tirelessly to piece together fragments of intercepted Valari communications. She spent hours in a dimly lit room filled with screens displaying lines of alien text and audio recordings. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she cross-referenced data, searching for patterns or clues about the Council's next move. Nathan Cole often joined her, bringing coffee and updates from military briefings. Despite their exhaustion, neither of them could afford to rest. One evening, Alina replayed a particularly garbled transmission. Something caught her attention. A single phrase repeated multiple times. Kael's rebellion grows stronger. At first she thought it might be a mistranslation. But when she ran the recording through several filters, the words became clearer. Excited, she called Nathan over. "Listen to this," she said, playing the clip again. "It sounds like there's unrest among the Valari." Nathan leaned closer, his brow furrowing. "You think Kael's people are causing trouble for the Council?" "It's possible," Alina replied. "If they're gaining support, it could weaken the Council's grip on power. Maybe even enough to make them reconsider attacking us." The two of them quickly brought their discovery to General Aaron Blake, who listened intently before nodding. "This changes things," he said. "If we can ally with these rebels, it might give us the leverage we need to end this without more bloodshed." President Laura Hayes agreed, though cautiously. "We can't trust them blindly," she warned during a private meeting. "But if they're willing to help expose the Council's corruption, it's worth exploring." With approval from the president, Alina and Nathan began reaching out to Kael's faction through encrypted channels. Their initial messages were cautious, designed to test whether the rebels truly intended to cooperate. To their relief, Kael responded promptly, providing detailed intelligence about the Council's plans and confirming that internal dissent was spreading rapidly. "We've gained control of key systems within the Empire," Kael wrote in one message. "Our goal is to dismantle the Council's authority and prevent further aggression against Earth. But we need your help." Alina read the message aloud to President Hayes and her advisors. "He says they're ready to act, but they're outnumbered and outgunned. They want us to strike while the Council is vulnerable." General Blake frowned. "It's risky. If we commit resources to supporting them and they fail, we'll have wasted valuable assets. But if they succeed," Dr. Rachel Monroe interjected, "we could cripple the Council's ability to wage war. It might be our best chance to avoid total conflict." After much deliberation, President Hayes made her decision. "We'll send a small team to assist Kael's rebellion," she announced, "but we'll keep the Oblivion Array on standby. If anything goes wrong, we'll need a fallback plan." The mission was codenamed Shadow Strike. Its objective was simple, yet dangerous: infiltrate the Valari homeworld. disable critical infrastructure, and provide Kale's forces with the tools they needed to overthrow the Council. Commander Lisa Bennett, a seasoned pilot known for her daring tactics, was chosen to lead the operation. Alina volunteered to join the team, arguing that her knowledge of the Valar language would be essential. Nathan insisted on coming along, as well, unwilling to let Alina go into danger alone. As preparations got underway, tension mounted. The crew underwent rigorous training, practicing stealth maneuvers and emergency protocols. Dr. Monroe equipped them with advanced technology, including cloaking devices and EMP grenades capable of disabling Valari systems. Each member of the team knew the stakes if they failed could mean the end of humanity's fragile resistance. Finally, the day of the mission arrived. The team boarded a sleek reconnaissance vessel called the Phantom Blade, designed specifically for covert operations. As they launched into space, Alina stared out the viewport, her mind racing with doubts and fears. Could they really pull this off? What if Kale turned out to be untrustworthy after all? Commander Bennett noticed her unease and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We've trained for this," she said firmly. "Stick to the plan, and we'll get the job done." The journey to the Valari homeworld took several days, during which the team reviewed their objectives repeatedly. When they finally reached their destination, the planet loomed large before them, a swirling mass of greens and blues, dotted with sprawling cities and towering spires. Using the cloaking device, the Phantom Blade slipped past orbital defenses undetected and landed in a remote area near one of the Council's primary command centers. Under the cover of darkness, the team disembarked, moving silently toward their target. Kale met them halfway, leading a group of rebel fighters armed with makeshift weapons. His expression was grim but determined. "Welcome," he said quietly. "We've disabled the perimeter sensors, but you'll need to move fast. The Council has increased patrols since the last uprising." Commander Bennett nodded. "Lead the way." With Kale guiding them, the team navigated through narrow alleys and abandoned buildings. Avoiding detection by patrolling drones, Alina stayed close to Nathan, clutching a translator device that allowed her to communicate with the rebels. Every step felt heavier than the last, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. When they reached the command center, the real challenge began. The facility was heavily guarded, its entrances sealed with biometric locks. Dr. Monroe's gadgets came in handy here. A hacking tool bypassed the security system, granting them access to the main control room. Inside, rows of terminals hummed with activity, monitored by unsuspecting Valari technicians. Alina approached one of the consoles, her hands trembling slightly as she typed commands translated by the device. "I'm disabling their communication networks," she whispered. "Without them, the Council won't be able to coordinate attacks." Meanwhile, Nathan and the others planted EMP grenades throughout the facility, ensuring maximum disruption once activated. The rebels kept watch outside, ready to fend off any reinforcements. Time seemed to slow as the team worked, each second stretching into an eternity. Suddenly, alarms blared, shattering the silence. One of the guards had discovered the intrusion. "We've been compromised," Commander Bennett shouted. "Activate the charges and fall back." Panic surged through the group as they scrambled to execute the final phase of the plan. Alina hit the activation button just as Nathan pulled her away from the console. Explosions rocked the building, sending shockwaves rippling outward. Lights flickered and died, plunging the facility into chaos. Outside, the rebels clashed with incoming Valari forces, their makeshift weapons no match for advanced energy rifles. Kale fought fiercely, rallying his troops despite the overwhelming odds. "Hold the line," he yelled. "For freedom!" Back aboard the Phantom Blade, the human team prepared for departure. Through the viewport, they watched as the command center crumbled, its destruction signaling a major blow to the Council's operations. But their relief was short-lived. As the ship lifted off, enemy vessels closed in, firing relentlessly. "Commander." Bennett piloted the Phantom Blade with incredible skill, weaving through the barrage of shots. "Hang on," she shouted, banking sharply to avoid a direct hit. Behind them, the rebels continued their fight, buying precious time for the humans to escape. As they broke free of the planet's atmosphere, Alina looked back at the burning horizon, tears streaming down her face. So many lives had been sacrificed. Not just humans, but Valari as well. Yet amidst the devastation, there was hope. Kale's rebellion had struck a significant blow, sowing discord within the Council's ranks. For the first time since Daniel Harper's execution, humanity had gained the upper hand. When the Phantom Blade returned to Earth, the team was greeted as heroes. President Hayes personally thanked them, her voice thick with emotion. "Given us a fighting chance," she said. "But remember, this is far from over." Indeed, the struggle was far from finished. The Council still held immense power, and their thirst for vengeance remained unchecked. But thanks to the bravery of Alina, Nathan, and their allies, the tide of the war had shifted ever so slightly. Humanity now had a glimmer of hope, a vital spark of light in the darkness, and somewhere deep within the Valari Empire. Kale stood tall amidst the ruins of the Council's stronghold, vowing to see the fight through to the end. Together, humans and rebels alike had proven that unity could overcome division, and courage could defy tyranny. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. The success of Operation Shadow Strike marked a turning point in humanity's conflict with the Valar Council. But it also ignited a firestorm of consequences. The destruction of the command center on the Valari homeworld sent shockwaves through their empire, fracturing the Council's authority and fueling widespread dissent. Kale's rebellion gained momentum as more Valari citizens turned against their leaders, outraged by revelations of corruption and manipulation. However, the Council was not about to surrender its power without a fight. Back on Earth, President Laura Hayes convened an emergency session with her advisors to assess the situation. Intelligence reports indicated that the Council had regrouped and was preparing for a massive counteroffensive. "They're rallying their fleets," General Aaron Blake explained, pointing to a holographic map displaying enemy movements. "If they launch another attack, it will be bigger than anything we've seen before." Dr. Rachel Monroe chimed in, her voice calm but urgent. "We need to deploy the Oblivion Array. It's our only chance to deter them." President Hayes hesitated, her expression conflicted. Using the array meant crossing a line that would change humanity's relationship with the Valari forever. But time was running out. Reluctantly, she gave the order. "Activate the array," she said quietly. "But make sure we use it strategically. We don't want to escalate this further than necessary." As preparations for the array's deployment began, Alina Cruz and Nathan Cole found themselves at the heart of the chaos. Both were hailed as heroes for their roles in Shadow Strike, but neither felt like celebrating. Daniel Harper's death still weighed heavily on them, and the thought of more lives being lost filled them with dread. Despite this, they threw themselves into their work. Determined to prevent further tragedy, Alina focused on analyzing intercepted Valari communications. Searching for any sign of weakness or opportunity, she spent hours poring over data, her mind racing with possibilities. One evening, as she reviewed a series of encrypted messages, she noticed something unusual, a pattern suggesting that the Council planned to strike Luna Station again. However, they intended to hit other key targets simultaneously, including orbital defense platforms and supply depots. "Nathan, look at this," Alina said urgently, pointing to her screen. "They're planning a multi-pronged assault. If they succeed, it could cripple our ability to defend ourselves." Nathan frowned, his jaw tightening. "We need to warn Admiral Grant. He'll have to spread his forces thin to cover all these locations." Alina nodded. "I'll send the intel to him immediately. But there's one thing I don't understand. Why are they targeting so many places at once? It seems reckless." "It's desperation," Nathan replied grimly. "The Council knows their grip is slipping. They're trying to buy time by hitting us hard and fast." Admiral Stephen Grant wasted no time responding to the new threat. He ordered Earth's fleet to disperse across multiple sectors, positioning ships near critical targets. At Luna Station, engineers worked around the clock to repair damage from the previous battle and reinforce defenses. Civilians were evacuated, leaving behind only military personnel and essential staff. Meanwhile, Dr. Monroe oversaw final tests of the Oblivion Array. The massive weapon loomed in orbit above Earth, its sleek design gleaming in the sunlight. Technicians ran simulations, ensuring every system functioned perfectly. When everything was ready, Dr. Monroe stood beside President Hayes in the command center, waiting the signal to activate the array. On the Valari side, the Council issued a chilling declaration. Earth has shown itself to be a threat to galactic peace. Their aggression will not go unanswered. Ships poured out of Valar space, forming a vast armada that dwarfed anything humanity had faced before. As they approached Earth's borders, tension reached a fever pitch. The first wave of attacks came at dawn. Valari vessels launched coordinated assaults on multiple fronts, their energy beams slicing through space like knives. At Luna Station, Admiral Grant led the defense effort, barking orders as explosions rocked the base. Pilots maneuvered there, starships with precision, dodging enemy fire and launching counterattacks. Ground troops fought valiantly to hold their positions, even as casualties mounted. Elsewhere, the battles raged just as fiercely. Orbital defense platforms exchanged fire with Valari cruisers, their shields flickering under relentless bombardment. Supply depots became battlegrounds, with soldiers risking their lives to protect vital resources. Back on Earth, civilians watched live footage of the conflict, faces pale with fear. Amid the chaos, the Oblivion Array finally came online. From her position in the command center, Dr. Monroe guided the weapon's targeting systems, selecting a cluster of Valari ships near Luna Station. With a deep breath, she pressed the activation button. A blinding beam of energy shot out from the array, striking its target with devastating force. In an instant, the entire cluster disintegrated, leaving nothing but debris floating in the void. The effect was immediate. The Valari fleet faltered, their confidence shaken by the unexpected display of power. Admiral Grant seized the opportunity, ordering his forces to press the advantage. Human pilots surged forward, taking out damaged Valar vessels, while the larger ships provided covering fire. Slowly but surely, the tide of the battle began to turn, back on Earth. President Hayes watched the unfolding events with mixed emotions. The Oblivion Array had proven its worth, but at what cost? The image of countless lives extinguished in an instant haunted her. Still, she couldn't deny the strategic importance of the weapon. It had saved countless human lives by tipping the scales in their favor as the battle continued. Kale's rebellion struck another blow against the Council, using intelligence provided by Elena and Nathan. The rebels sabotaged key facilities within the Valari Empire, crippling production lines and disrupting supply chains. Without reinforcements or resources, the Council's forces struggled to maintain their offensive. By nightfall, the Valar Armada began retreating, their losses too great to sustain the fight. Admiral Grant ordered his ships to pursue cautiously, wary of potential traps. But on Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. For the first time since the crisis began, hope flickered brightly. Yet amidst the jubilation, Elena and Nathan remained somber. They knew the war was far from over. The Council might have been weakened, but it was not defeated. And the scars left by the conflict, both physical and emotional, would take years to heal. In the days that followed, humanity began picking up the pieces. Reconstruction efforts got underway at Luna Station and other damaged sites. Families mourned their dead, while survivors grappled with the trauma of war. Leaders debated the future of Earth's relationship with the Valari, weighing the risks and rewards of diplomacy versus continued hostility. For Elena, the road ahead was clear. She vowed to keep working toward understanding between species, believing that peace was still possible if humanity stayed vigilant. Nathan shared her determination, though his focus leaned more toward strengthening Earth's defenses. Together, they represented two sides of the same coin, hope and resilience. As Earth looked to the stars, the lessons of the past few weeks lingered in everyone's minds. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge yet and emerged stronger, but also wiser. The choices made during this dark chapter would shape not only the future of Earth, but the destiny of countless worlds beyond. And somewhere among those stars, Kale and his fellow rebels carried the torch of freedom, proving that even in the face of tyranny, courage could light the way. The aftermath of the Valari retreat brought a fragile calm to Earth, but it was a calm tinged with uncertainty. The battles had left deep scars both on the planet and in the hearts of its people. Luna Station was a shadow of its former self, its once bustling corridors now eerily quiet as engineers worked tirelessly to repair the damage. Orbital defense platforms floated like wounded beasts, their shields flickering weakly as technicians struggled to bring them back online. Supply depots that had survived the assault were stretched thin, rationing resources for the next potential fight. Despite the victories won at great cost, humanity knew better than to celebrate too soon. Admiral Stephen Grant remained vigilant, keeping his fleet on high alert near the borders of Valari space. He understood that the Council's withdrawal was likely temporary, a tactical retreat, rather than an admission of defeat. They'll regroup, he warned during a briefing with President Laura Hayes, and when they come back, they'll hit harder. Dr. Rachel Monroe echoed his concerns. The Oblivion Array gave us breathing room, but it also painted a target on our backs. The Council sees us as a threat, now not just politically, but existentially. President Hayes nodded grimly. Her face, usually composed, showed signs of strain. The weight of leadership rested heavily on her shoulders, especially after authorizing the use of such a devastating weapon. She had seen the footage of the array obliterating an entire cluster of Valari ships. It was efficient, yes, but it was also horrifying. Each destroyed vessel represented lives lost, families torn apart. For every enemy killed, she wondered, how many innocents had been aboard? Alina Cruz and Nathan Cole found themselves caught between relief and unease. They had played crucial roles in tipping the scales against the Council, yet neither felt triumphant. Alina spent her days sifting through intercepted communications, searching for any hint of the Council's next move. Nathan, meanwhile, trained harder than ever, determined to prepare for whatever came next. Both carried the memory of Daniel. Harper's execution, a constant reminder of what was at stake. One evening, as Alina analyzed a batch of new transmissions, she noticed something unusual. A series of coded messages suggested that the Council was consolidating its remaining forces around a single location, a massive orbital station called the Aegis Nexus. According to Kale's rebels, Aegis Nexus served as both a military stronghold and a propaganda hub, broadcasting messages across the Valar Empire to rally support for the war effort. This could be it, Lena said, turning to Nathan. If we take out the Aegis Nexus, we might cripple their ability to control the population and maybe even end the rebellion within their own ranks. Nathan frowned. It's risky. The place is probably crawling with guards and defenses. Even with the Oblivion Array, hitting it directly might not work. Elena shook her head. We don't need to destroy it outright. If we can infiltrate and sabotage it from the inside, we can disable its systems without causing unnecessary casualties. General Aaron Blake agreed when they presented the idea to him. It's bold, he admitted. But if it works, it could change everything. I'll assign Commander Lisa Bennett to lead the mission. The plan, codenamed Operation Eclipse, involved sending a small team to infiltrate the Aegis Nexus disguised as maintenance workers. Their objective was simple: plant EMP devices throughout the facility to disable critical systems, then escape before reinforcements arrived. Kale's rebels would provide cover by staging diversions elsewhere in the Empire, drawing attention away from the real target. As preparations got underway, Alina volunteered to join the infiltration team. I'm the only one who can decode their language quickly enough to navigate the station's systems, she argued when Nathan tried to dissuade her. Besides, I've done this before. Reluctantly, Nathan agreed to accompany her, insisting on being part of the security detail. Together, they joined Commander Bennett and 3 other operatives aboard the stealth ship Shadow Dart, designed specifically for covert missions. The journey to the Aegis Nexus took several tense days, during which the team reviewed their objectives repeatedly. Every member knew the risks if they were caught. There would be no second chances. When they reached the station, Shadow Dart slipped past outer defenses, using cloaking technology provided by Dr. Monroe. The team disembarked under the cover of darkness, blending into the stream of actual maintenance workers entering the facility. Alina clutched a forged ID badge tightly, her heart pounding as she approached the checkpoint. To her relief, the guard barely glanced at her credentials before waving her through. Inside, the station was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers. Bustling with activity, giant screens displayed images of the council's leaders delivering impassioned speeches about unity and vengeance. Workers scurried about, performing routine tasks, while armed guards patrolled the area. Alina led the group toward the central control room, her translator device buzzing softly as it decoded nearby signs and labels. "Commander." Bennett signaled for silence as they neared their first objective, a power relay junction. One of the operatives knelt to attach an EMP device, his movements quick and precise. As he finished, the lights dimmed briefly before returning to normal. No alarms sounded so far, so good. The team moved on to their next target, navigating deeper into the station. Along the way, Alina overheard snippets of conversation between workers. Many expressed doubt about the council's motives, questioning why they were fighting humans instead of addressing problems within their own empire. These murmurs of dissent gave her hope. Perhaps Kale's rebellion was having a greater impact than anyone realized. At the final destination, the main broadcast tower, things went awry. As Nathan kept watch outside, Alina and another operative entered the control room to plant the last EMP device. Just as they activated it, a guard burst in, shouting an alarm. Before he could sound the alarm, Commander Bennett subdued him with a swift strike, but the damage was done. Red lights began flashing, and klaxons blared throughout the station. "We've got company," Nathan yelled from the doorway, his weapon drawn. "Finish the job," Commander Bennett ordered. "We'll hold them off." Alina worked frantically, her fingers flying across the console as she initiated the shutdown sequence. Moments later, the screens went dark, cutting off the council's propaganda feed. Cheers erupted from somewhere outside. Kale's rebels had timed their diversion perfectly, creating chaos that masked the team's escape. With seconds to spare, the group regrouped and sprinted toward the extraction point. Behind them, guards pursued relentlessly, firing energy bolts that narrowly missed their targets. When they reached the docking bay, the Shadow Dart awaited, engines humming. Commander Bennett ushered everyone aboard before taking the controls, piloting the ship through a hail of enemy fire. As they broke free of the station's gravity well, the team watched from the viewport as explosions rippled through the Asterisk Aegis. Nexus, Asterisk. Key systems collapsed, plunging the facility into disarray. Without its propaganda machine, the Council's grip on the Empire began to falter even further. Back on Earth, news of the operation spread quickly. President Hayes addressed the nation, praising the bravery of those involved, while cautioning that the war was not yet won. "Today we struck a blow against tyranny," she declared. "But let us remember that true victory lies not in destruction, but in understanding. We must remain steadfast in our pursuit of peace." For Alina and Nathan, the mission reinforced their belief that cooperation, even with former enemies, was possible. Through encrypted channels, they received a message from Kale. "You've given us the chance we needed," he wrote. "The Council's lies are crumbling. Together, we will rebuild." Though challenges remained, humanity stood stronger than ever. The sacrifices made along the way, from Daniel Harper's death to the countless lives lost in battle, had forged a resolve that would not easily break. And as Earth looked to the stars, it did so with hope tempered by wisdom, knowing that the road ahead would require courage, compassion, and unwavering determination. The destruction of the Aegis Nexus sent shockwaves through the Volari Empire, both literally and figuratively. The orbital station, once a symbol of the Council's dominance, now lay in ruins, a stark reminder of their vulnerability. Without its propaganda broadcasts to unify the population, dissent spread like wildfire. Kale's rebellion gained unprecedented momentum as more Volari citizens turned against their leaders. Cities erupted in protests, with crowds chanting slogans like "freedom over fear" and "justice for all." Even loyalists within the Council began questioning whether continuing the war was worth the cost. On Earth, President Laura Hayes watched these developments closely. intelligence reports poured in daily, detailing the growing unrest within the Valkyrie Empire. For the first time since the conflict began, humanity held the upper hand. But instead of celebrating, President Hayes felt a deep sense of responsibility. The decisions made now would shape not only the future of Earth, but also the fate of countless lives across the galaxy. She knew that while military victories were important, lasting peace required something more: trust. Alina Cruz played a key role in this effort. Her knowledge of the Valar language and culture made her an invaluable asset in communicating with Kale's faction. Through encrypted channels, she exchanged messages with the rebels, offering advice and support. One evening, as she reviewed a transcript of one such conversation, she noticed something remarkable. Many of the rebels expressed admiration for humanity, not just for its technological advancements, but for its resilience and determination to stand up for what was right. "They see us as allies," Lena told Nathan during a quiet moment in their shared quarters. "Not invaders, not enemies, but partners." Nathan raised an eyebrow, skepticism written all over his face. "Do you really think they're ready to forgive everything that's happened?" "We've fought them hard, Alina. They've lost people." "Too. I'm not saying it'll be easy," Elena replied. "But look at what Kale's doing. He's risking everything to create change. If we can show them we're willing to work together, maybe, just maybe, we can find common ground." Her words stayed with Nathan long after their conversation ended. Over the past weeks, he had focused solely on defense and survival, convinced that the Valari could never truly be trusted. But Elena's optimism planted a seed of doubt in his mind. Could there really be another way forward? Meanwhile, General Aaron Blake and Dr. Rachel Monroe continued refining Earth's strategies. The Oblivion Array remained operational, its presence serving as both a shield and a warning. Yet even they recognized that weapons alone couldn't win this war. During a meeting with President Hayes, Dr. Monroe proposed a bold idea: establish direct communication with moderate factions within the Valar Empire. We might be able to isolate the extremists and bring about a ceasefire. President Hayes considered the suggestion carefully. It was risky; any misstep could reignite hostilities, but the potential rewards outweighed the dangers. "Prepare a message," she instructed. "Make it clear that we seek peace, not domination. And make sure Kale knows we're including him in this." The message went out via secure channels, broadcast across frequencies monitored by rebel groups. It was simple, yet powerful. "To the people of the Valari Empire, we extend our hand. In friendship, your fight for freedom is ours as well. Together we can build a future where no one suffers under tyranny." Kale responded almost immediately. "Your words give us strength," he wrote. "But the Council grows desperate. They are planning one final strike, a massive assault on Earth itself. You must prepare." The warning sent shockwaves through Earth's leadership. Admiral Stephen Grant scrambled to reinforce planetary defenses, positioning fleets strategically around Earth and its colonies. Engineers worked around the clock to upgrade shields and repair damaged ships. Civilians prepared for the worst, stocking supplies and seeking shelter in underground bunkers. Yet amidst the preparations, Lena refused to lose sight of the bigger picture. She approached President Hayes with a daring proposal: send a delegation to meet with Kale and other rebel leaders, face to face. "We need to show them we're serious about working together," she argued. "A gesture like this could turn the tide completely." President Hayes hesitated. Sending humans directly into Valari territory was incredibly dangerous, especially given the ongoing civil unrest. But Elena's conviction was unwavering. Finally, after consulting with her advisors, the president gave her approval. "Choose your team wisely," she said. "May luck be with you." Elena selected Nathan to accompany her, along with 2 experienced diplomats and a small security detail led by Commander Lisa Bennett. They boarded the Shadow Dart once again, this time heading toward neutral territory agreed upon by Kale's faction. As the ship entered Valari space, tension filled the cabin. Every member of the team understood the gravity of their mission and the risks involved. When they arrived at the designated meeting point, remote asteroid base converted into a temporary rebel stronghold, they were greeted by Kale himself. His presence was commanding yet approachable, his silver skin gleaming under artificial lights. "Welcome," he said, extending a hand. Alina shook his hand firmly, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Thank you for yours. We're here because we believe in a better future for all of us." The next several days, humans and rebels worked together to draft a joint declaration condemning the Council's actions and calling for unity among their peoples. Kale shared intelligence about the Council's planned attack, allowing Earth's forces to adjust their defenses accordingly. In return, Lena promised humanitarian aid and technical assistance to help rebuild areas devastated by the war. As the discussions progressed, bonds began to form between the two groups. Despite their differences, they discovered shared values: a desire for peace, justice, and prosperity for all. Even Nathan found himself warming to Kale and his followers, impressed by their courage and dedication. But time was running out. Back on Earth, Admiral Grant received confirmation that the Council's fleet was mobilizing colossal armada, larger than anything seen before. The final battle was imminent. Kale accompanied the human delegation back to Earth, determined to stand alongside them in the fight ahead. When they arrived, President Hayes welcomed him warmly, acknowledging the sacrifices made by his people. "Together, we will face whatever comes next," she declared. "And when this is over, we will build a new world, one based on cooperation, not conflict." As the Council's fleet approached Earth, humanity braced for impact. The skies darkened, with the shadow of enemy ships, their energy beams glowing ominously. Yet this time, Earth wasn't alone. Kale's rebels joined the fight, launching surprise attacks from within the Valerie ranks. Their combined efforts created chaos. Forcing the Council to divert resources and weaken their assault, Admiral Grant seized the opportunity, ordering his forces to strike at the heart of the enemy fleet. Pilots flew with precision, dodging fire and targeting critical vessels. Ground troops defended key installations, holding their ground against overwhelming odds. Above it all, the Oblivion Array stood ready, its power a silent promise of retribution if needed. Slowly but surely, the tide of the battle turned. Council's forces faltered, their resolve crumbling under the weight of internal betrayal and external resistance. By the time the dust settled, their once mighty armada lay in ruins. In the aftermath, Calais addressed his people, urging them to embrace a new era of cooperation with Earth. "The Council has fallen," he announced. "But our journey is just beginning. Let us rise above hatred and fear and forge a brighter future." For humanity, the victory was bittersweet. Lives had been lost, homes destroyed, and scars left behind that would take years to heal. Yet through it all, they had proven something vital. Even in the darkest moments, hope could prevail. And as Earth looked to the stars, it did so with renewed purpose, knowing that the path to peace was paved with courage, sacrifice, and the belief that together, anything was possible.